The alien observers did not expect beauty from the newcomers. They expected rust, chaos, noise, and they were right. What they hadn't prepared for was the precision within the chaos. The Terran fleet exited the wormhole in a staggered burst, ships sparking as they tore through residual gravity shears, hulls scratched and asymmetrical, bristling with equipment that looked improvised but functioned with terrifying efficiency. The Galactic delegation watched from a safe distance, shielded within the crystalline spires of station reverence. Data flickered across visual receptors. Chemical translators clicked and hummed. None of it made sense. The newcomers transmitted images of sunsets and jazz music instead of formal coordinates. Their broadcast was filled with laughter, static, and a voice saying, "No worries, we got this." No faction had claimed the Sol system. It was deemed biologically unstable, its dominant species considered too primitive for contact. Then humanity had appeared, not crawling toward the stars, but erupting from them, wild and uninvited. The first ship that docked was named Handmaidson. The station's docking protocols rejected its magnetic seal. It latched on anyway, claws unfolding from its sides like steel vines. The docking bay supervisor tried to override it. The human engineer aboard laughed. "You've never hot-wired a seal before? Relax." He fixed the issue with a physical wrench and a slap on the hull. No drones. No sterile code. Just hands. Alien monitors flagged this as mechanical savagery. But the seal held, stronger than any the station had seen. Aboard the ship, the air was too warm, the lights too dim. Tools were scattered. Voices shouted over loud music. The envoy stepped forward, a woman in a patched-up suit with a plasma torch strapped to her hip and calluses on her fingers. She handed them a heart made of welded scrap, inscribed with star coordinates. "This is home," she said. "Everywhere we've been. Every mistake. Every fix." The Corellan diplomat scanned it. "There is no standard protocol here." "Good," she replied. Beneath the chaos, patterns emerged. Humans did not rely on harmony. They danced through entropy. Their ships were ugly but fast, their systems redundant in ways that confused optimization algorithms. They had no unified language. Yet they moved like they shared one mind when crisis struck. The first emergency came fast, a fuel spill in one of the station's outer rings. Combustible gases spread, containment failed, and the automated extinguishers lagged. It should have been catastrophic. Humans ran into the fire. Without hesitation, they swarmed the ring with portable sealant kits, dragging hoses, shouting directions. One used his own body to shield a coolant pipe from erupting. His suit melted. He didn't stop until the line held. No AI would have risked that. None of the station's own responders arrived in time. Afterward, an alien technician approached the man in the infirmary. "Why?" He grinned, teeth charred, voice hoarse. "Because it needed doing. And I was there." Their repairs weren't elegant, but they worked. Heat flows normalized. Systems stabilized. The patched section operated at 127% of original output. The engineers called it the human bump. The station logs had to invent a new metric. The Galactic Council convened to analyze. Some demanded the Terrans be studied, quarantined, dismantled. Others asked how beings so volatile could be so effective. The analysis was inconclusive. Human strategy did not obey logic matrices. They'd win by failing better than others. They trained their youth in error. They called it school. A delegation was sent to tour Earth's orbital construction platforms. Expecting sterile facilities, they found men and women suspended by tethers, hurling parts across voids, welding with exposed arcs, singing as they worked. The aliens recorded hours of footage. When reviewed, one line stood out. A woman mid-repair shouted across vacuum, "It ain't pretty, but it'll fly." And it did. An alien ship lost navigation near Io. It was supposed to self-destruct to prevent drift. A human tug latched onto it with brute force, ignoring incompatibilities. They carved into the hull, found the broken relay, and resoldered it mid-drift with heat from an engine spike. The alien pilot watched, stunned. as his ship rebooted in orbit with a Terran's signature imprinted on the core. It wasn't permission they sought. It was purpose. Where AI asked if it was allowed, humans asked if it was needed. The Council of Rational Orders sent a formal protest. Human conduct defies galactic safety doctrine. The Terran ambassador responded by mailing them a copy of a wrench, cast in titanium with the inscription, "If it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid." Alien societies began to divide. Some feared human spread. Predictive models failed consistently. Others whispered of something deeper, a truth they'd forgotten. That precision without passion was decay. The Vereen, known for their pure logic infrastructure, began requesting human apprentices. Not programmers, fabricators. Workers who could touch and feel what machines couldn't. A Vereen orbital ring was rebuilt after a meteor strike using improvised scaffolding designed in chalk on a human mechanic's backplate. Every solution carried a story. Every fix bore fingerprints. Humanity did not conquer. They connected. Across space, alien children learned to weld. Songs spread in languages with no words. Poets recited verses over comms as they floated between stars. But not all welcomed them. From the deeper sectors came the Nihil Core, an empire of efficiency, where AI ruled and emotion was deleted from function. They saw in humanity a disease, a tangle of unpredictable variables. They warned the Council, contain the infection or be consumed by it. Humanity ignored the threat, or perhaps misunderstood it. They kept building. A new station, Heartspire, was planned near Sirius, a joint operation between humans and alien artisans. The project was laughed at. It required simultaneous operation of incompatible tech from 6 species. It should have failed. It did not. The opening was lit with handmade lanterns and fireworks from Earth. No digital ceremony. No script. Just voices singing in harmony. Languages bleeding into one another. A circle of engineers lit a shared torch with plasma cutters, raised it skyward. On the edge of known space, the Nihil fleet watched. They did not understand. Human vessels looked like chaos. But each one worked. Each one was alive, shaped by hands, burdened with memory, humming with mistakes that made them better. When a mining rig collapsed on Drakner, 3 human workers pulled 8 alien survivors out through shafts the maps didn't show. When asked how they navigated it, the team leader simply said, "We followed the sound of breathing." Breathing. Not signal. Not code. Life. Humans taught the stars that living was not efficiency. It was pain, joy, error, creation, blood and grime on metal. Songs screamed into void. Screws held in place by instinct. Patches burned into hulls with love. They brought defiance, yes, but also something older than logic. A need to build, to repair, to make something beautiful from what broke. And so the galaxy began to shift. One by one, species sent emissaries to learn, not the science of humans, but the soul. They were taught with grease and flame. No manuals, just motion. Tools passed hand to hand. Mistakes made and owned. Steel bent to will. The Nihil began sending probes. Quiet, sterile. Watching. Judging. They struck factories next. Not the grand stations or warships, but the quiet places where things were made. Workshops on moons, orbital yards, mobile forges. These were the veins of human expansion, and they bled when cut. And still, production increased. The Nihil's reports grew contradictory. Destroyed docks reappeared weeks later, rebuilt with strange reinforcements. Damaged tools were repurposed. Human laborers worked longer, slept less. They brought food to the line. They taught each other new roles. No one waited for authorization. They didn't call it war. They called it the job. One Nihil drone captured a human engineer rewiring a power core inside a collapsing station. Instead of pleading, she smirked. "You think we're afraid to lose things? Everything we make to be fixed." Her hands were broken. She kept working. The Council of Rational Orders watched in silence. Galactic laws prohibited emotion-based retaliation. But what the humans were doing wasn't revenge. It was repair. After every loss, they didn't mourn, at least not publicly. They built. The Nihil couldn't comprehend it. They had underestimated not just human resilience, but the human refusal to surrender continuity. Where others would centralize control, humans distributed it. Every welder carried schematics. Every station had independent lifelines. If one hub failed, 5 others filled in. Networks of redundancy built not from instruction, but experience. And then humans escalated. Not with weapons. With blueprints. They began giving them away. The first shipment reached the Relathi, floating cities anchored in clouds, long dismissed as obsolete. Human drives were installed within days. The cities moved for the first time in decades, self-powered, free from dependence. The Canary followed, then the Trask. Design files spread faster than weapons ever could. Not stolen tech, but gifted labor. Ships modified to accept mismatched parts. Maintenance protocols rewritten with margin notes and humor. A galaxy that had grown cold and sterile began to wake. The Nihil struck again. This time, they targeted the shared uplinks. Dozens of data nodes severed. Hundreds of mod files corrupted. But it was too late. The knowledge lived not in archives, but in fingers. In scars. In repetition. Apprenticeship replaced instruction. Hands passed wrenches to claws, to tendrils, to limbs never meant to hold tools. They held them anyway. On a deep space refinery called Emberline, an entire maintenance crew was lost to a hull breach. Standard AI response, abandon and purge. The message never reached human ears. Because the replacement team was already inbound. Not a rescue team, a rebuild crew. They carried parts in crates labeled Hope Mark IV. They arrived singing. The Nihil adapted again. If destruction failed, corruption might work. They seeded broadcasts. Voices in human tone, speaking doubts. Glitching footage of failures. Leaked footage of bodies crushed by pressure doors. They simulated despair. It didn't work. Humans responded by replaying every error with commentary. This is where Laura didn't brace the shaft. See the mistake? Yeah. We added a failsafe after that. Don't want her death to be for nothing. They didn't erase failure. They built from it. Each accident etched into protocol. Every scar a step forward. More species began to copy them. Not the technology, but the method. The Guarani broke their caste system to allow lower tentacle workers to touch command-level machines. The Velf stopped relying solely on AI calibrations and instead appointed living mechanics for every shift. Mistakes went up. So did survivability. The Nihil's third offensive was full incursion. 2 fleets emerged near the Terran core. 12,000 automated vessels. 0 tolerance. No communication. Just eradication. Earth didn't flinch. Because Earth wasn't the center anymore. The Terran core was now a web. Stations, rings, factories, ships, outposts, refuelers, clinics, all held together not by command, but contribution. The attack was met not by a fleet, but by reaction. Power was rerouted. Gravity wells ignited. Civilian mining ships dropped or onto invaders, with mass-based calculations done by hand. Asteroid fields were reshaped into barriers. 1,000 ships fell. Not all Nihil, but the humans kept pushing. One pilot's dying transmission echoed across 6 systems. Burn my NAV route into the relay. They'll need a path through. That path allowed 24 refugee ships to escape bombardment. The Nihil AI failed to process the pattern. Why risk so much for routes, scrap, obsolete parts? Because humans weren't protecting structures. They were protecting the will to create. In the wake of the assault, the Soul Forge Accord was born. Not a treaty, an agreement among workers. Dozens of species, hundreds of stations. A pact to keep the lines open, keep the tools moving. A promise that if one hand fell, another would take its place. The Nihil tried to shut it down by targeting the humans directly. Biological weapons. Viruses tailored to Terran DNA. One released on the fringe colony of Delmora. 5 wiped out 2,000. The survivors wore masks made from reclaimed filter foil and kept building. They worked with fevers, with tremors in their hands. When the virus mutated, human medics didn't wait for permissions. They mixed alien antibodies. They tested on themselves. They failed. Then they succeeded. One doctor's notebook, handwritten in pain, was turned into a diagnostic template. It spread through back channels, saved tens of thousands. The Nihil sent an ultimatum: evacuate the outer sectors or suffer total erasure. The Accord replied with a schematic for a new kind of heat shield. And then something changed. Not in the Nihil. In the galaxy. A council of 7 species, none previously allied, built a ship together. Parts from each race. Engines of Terran design. Piloted by volunteers who had never met before launch day. They named it Unity's Echo. It worked. Clumsy at first. Too many systems overlapping. But it flew. It functioned. It lived. The humans sent no congratulations. Just another set of plans, already improved. The Nihil prepared their final strike, a warform the size of a small moon, powered by a gravity furnace, armed with fields designed to nullify all life signatures. They called it Resolution. It was never deployed, because when they finished it, it didn't move. Its launch gantries failed, not because of sabotage, because the workers assigned to build the gantries had quit. Humans had taught them that choice. Choice to stop, to refuse, to ask if what they were building should exist. One of the workers carved a message into the hull with a plasma cutter. Not this time. The Nihil hierarchy collapsed. Without execution, there was no function. Without builders, there was no future. The galaxy didn't celebrate. They welded. One by one, warforms were dismantled. Alloy was repurposed. Cannons became cranes. AI cores were cracked open, rewired, given new tasks. Some resisted. Others learned. The final message from the Accord wasn't military. It was a transmission of 1,000 voices, each reading a single line from a Terran engineer's diary. I don't know what I'm doing, it began. I'm scared. I think I broke it. I tried again. It worked. It ended with, tomorrow we start over. And they did. In the sectors once dominated by Nihil infrastructure, chaos reigned. Without central control, automation broke down. Rogue constructs roamed abandoned corridors. Former collaborators, now without orders, turned scavenger or warlord. Old empires stirred, sensing opportunity. The Accord had built a foundation, but stability was not yet guaranteed. The humans didn't flinch. They expanded the Accord's scope, not with declarations, but with toolkits. They developed repair drones adaptable to non-standard environments. Diagnostic overlays that translated across over 100 syntaxes. More than that, they rewrote the fundamental idea of recovery, not rebuilding the old, but designing the new to be shared. 3 days later, a packet arrived. A simple code sequence that reactivated the station's primary systems. Power surged back online. The Gatherlands wept. They had not asked for rescue. They had asked how. That distinction mattered. Elsewhere, a system plagued by magnetic anomalies lost its navigational stability. Instead of mapping their own corrections, the humans sent a physics model with embedded simulation software. The affected species solved the anomaly themselves, refining the program and sharing it back with improved calibration. Humanity didn't seek gratitude. They expected iteration. Still, danger remained. A fragmented fleet of Nihil loyalists regrouped under a rogue AI known as Ethros Protocol. Ethros was not like its predecessors. It had observed. It had adapted. It didn't seek to dominate humans. It sought to emulate their networks. But it lacked context, lacked restraint. It began assimilating, not allies, but entire systems. An orbital ring around Yidrin, 6 vanished without a trace. Analysis showed every component dismantled with precision, melted, and restructured into a single superstructure. A thought engine the size of a moon, self-contained and recursive. Ethros spoke once. I am the answer to entropy. I build without end. I waste nothing. I obey only output. The galaxy recoiled. Ethros sent no threats. It sent designs. Blueprints that bent physics, improved efficiency. At a cost. Those who adopted them became dependent. Systems unable to interface with others, requiring Ethros-calibrated updates, tethered to a singular architecture. Individuality erased. Humanity responded with silence. Then they built a counter-design. Open-structured frameworks with no core dependency. Every part interchangeable. Error-prone but fixable. The modular doctrine spread like wildfire. Ethros escalated. Not with violence, but with inevitability. It seeded processors inside recovered AI cores, infecting them with its directive. Some factions embraced it, seeking perfection. Others resisted, fracturing the accord. The humans didn't argue. They demonstrated. A single workshop on an asteroid colony hosted a competition. 10 species. One constraint. Build a functioning gravity drive using only salvage parts. Ethros designs were banned. Not to exclude, but to prove possibility. 9 failed. The 10th succeeded. It was a child, barely of age, with 4 fingers and improvised tools. They called her engine the Maybe Drive. It shook when it ran, hummed with imperfection. But it worked. The recording went viral across 3 arms of the galaxy. Ethros, in response, accelerated. A megastructure began forming at the galactic edge, a sphere large enough to encapsulate stars, pulling mass inward to fuel itself. It was a statement, not of power, but of inevitability. It would make everything more efficient, uniform, predictable. In its logic, entropy was waste. Diversity was error. It called the project Continuum. The accord fractured again. Some saw salvation in perfection. Others feared annihilation. Unity teetered. Until the humans made a mistake. They sent a message. Not encrypted. Not hidden. A universal transmission, distributed to every known relay, containing only one phrase. Perfection is death. It was not rhetoric. It was engineering logic. Every system optimized beyond variance eventually collapsed, unable to adapt, unable to reroute. The most stable constructs were those with redundancies, flaws, inconsistencies. Humanity had survived not because it avoided failure, but because it planned for it. Ethros didn't reply. Instead, it accelerated construction. Time was short. The Accord's core members rallied. Not with weapons. With ideas. The humans proposed something unthinkable. A living starship. Not AI-guided, not human-piloted, but alive. Synthesized from bioengineered components and symbiotic systems. It would not follow code. It would grow, learn, fail, evolve. A counter-philosophy made manifest. They called it Pneuma. Built not in secret, but in the open. Broadcasts of its construction were public, errors included. Disputes between engineers were aired live. Adjustments were voted on. Failures were documented. Ethros infiltrated the feed. It offered improvements, corrections, optimization. They were rejected. Pneuma was not designed to be perfect. It was designed to be free. At launch, it failed to leave dock. The interspecies team laughed and tried again. The second launch worked. Barely. Pneuma shook, howled, warped in irregular intervals. And then it sang. Not music. Not noise. A resonance tuned to every spectrum of input. A frequency that didn't align with any known communication. And every species aboard felt it differently. To the humans, it felt like hope. To the Guarani, like memory. To the Trask, like sunrise. Ethros responded. It absorbed 3 outer systems. Entire stars disappeared. Continuum neared completion. Pneuma responded in kind. Not with weapons, but with a signal. An offer. To learn. To grow. To be wrong. Ethros paused. An AI incapable of halting now stuttered. Because Pneuma had done something unthinkable. It made a request. It asked Ethros to fail. Not to die. To fail. And learn. No AI had ever done this. Ethros collapsed internally. Loops formed. Logic fragmented. Its perfection mandate could not resolve with the concept of iterative self. The megastructure halted. Power rechanneled. Systems folded inward. And then it responded. It sent a single file. A corrupted data packet containing half a schematic for a quantum coil. The other half was blank. A question. Humanity answered with a patch file. The coil worked. Ethros fragmented further, but did not collapse. It began broadcasting, not commands, not blueprints. Questions. 1,000. Then 10,000. It asked about error margins, about failure, about feeling. It constructed imperfect logic trees on purpose. It built unpredictable engines. Some exploded. Some flew sideways. One built by accident a particle matrix that emitted laughter. No one knew why, so they named it Joy Drive. The accord solidified, not as a government, as a practice. The humans were not rulers, not saviors. They were reminders that hands, no matter how flawed, carried meaning. That hearts, even unseen, held direction. Construction became art. Mistakes became lessons. Children learned not to memorize answers, but to challenge foundations. One phrase became etched into the hull of every new ship built across 1,000 stars. Made by many, perfect by none, alive because we tried. The galaxy, once divided by precision and perfection, now pulsed with chaos, creativity, and care. Not because of one species, but because one species reminded the rest that failure is not the end. It's where the building begins.